Hello, everybody. My name is David Levencross. I am the Director of Jewish Education for JDC Europe. I love Sarvash, and it's a great pleasure for me to be speaking to you today. Now, the afternoon of Tisha B'Av, not the night before, not the morning of, but the afternoon of Tisha B'Av is a very interesting time. Those who are fasting are still fasting. It's still a sad day, but a lot of the prohibitions, a lot of the things that you're not allowed to do become permitted. And that is because the afternoon of Tisha B'Av is the time when we begin to see the end. We begin to see that the bad things that we remember on Tisha B'Av are coming to an end. And we need to face the world anew again, not only thinking about the bad things that have happened to the Jewish people. In some way, many of us are like that now in a very, very different way. Many of us are in countries where Corona is not over, but it has improved. We're not quite yet there yet. Some of us are still wearing masks. Some of us are in places where we still have to be careful. We're worried about other strains. But on the other hand, the end is near. People are going on vacations, people are going to conferences, and it's that very, very strange, very, very difficult place where Corona is not quite yet over, but on the other hand, it isn't in full force either. And that is the atmosphere that you have on Tisha B'Av afternoon. And what I want to do today is I want us to look at how we deal with going from trauma to renewal, using Jewish texts, and see what we have to learn for it for ourselves. I called the class, All You Need Is Love. Maybe it's a little cheesy, a little bit corny, but I really feel it's true, because what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a lesser known day that comes after the 9th of Av, on the 15th of Av, called Tu B'Av, Saturday, 25 July this year, which is actually the festival of love. And what I'm going to try and say is that this day, which celebrates romantic love, actually contains in it the recipe, the tools for us to move from tragedy or trauma to joy and renewal. So let's go on a little bit of a tour in Jewish sources and see what we can learn about Tisha B'Av, the fast of Tisha B'Av, and how Tu B'Av actually uses these in a different direction. What happened on the 9th of Av? Why is it that we have this very serious fast on this day? Why is it that it became this day that is the symbol of all the bad things that have happened to Jews in history? We read in the Mishnah, on the 9th of Av, it was decreed on our ancestors that they would all die in the wilderness and not enter the land of Israel. Some of you will remember the story from the Torah when Moses sends 12 spies into the land of Israel to check things out. And when they come back, 10 of them say it's an awful country. The people get despondent, and God says, these people are not ready to enter the land of Israel. We need to bring a new generation into the land of Israel. Everybody who is alive now will die in the desert, and a new generation will go in. And that, according to the Mishnah, happened on the 9th of Av, the 9th of the Hebrew month of Av. And of course, the most famous, the temple was destroyed the first time in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, and in the second of Babylonian king, and the second time by the Romans. Both of these, according to the Mishnah, happened on Tisha B'Av. The temple, the central place of Jewish worship, was destroyed. Why was it destroyed? The first temple was destroyed because the people of Israel were evil. But, asks the Gemara in Yoma, Why was the second temple destroyed, given that the Jews of the time studied Torah, kept the commandments, and performed acts of charity? They were basically good people. So why was it destroyed? Because of groundless hatred. They did not treat each other with respect. They hated each other. What else happened on this day? Beitar was captured. There was a revolt after the second temple run by Bar Kokhba, where they tried to get rid of the Romans, but it didn't work. Whatever little bit of sovereignty, of rulership that the people had in the land was destroyed, and the land was plowed, and the city of Jerusalem was plowed with salt. It was destroyed completely. All of these terrible things happened in Av, and then the Mishnah says, from when the month of Av begins, one decreases acts of rejoicing. Mishenichnas Av mimatim b'simcha, we have less rejoicing. Traditionally, this is understood as not having weddings, not having live music, not cutting one's hair. You can see I've got a little bit of a stubble over here, because one of the things that some Jewish men do is not shave because of Tisha B'Av. These are all, because of the month of Av, these are all ways to show mourning and to show sadness. We see this written again in the Mishnah. During the week in which the 9th of Av occurs, it is prohibited to cut one's hair, what I just said, and to launder clothes, to wash your clothing. And on the eve of the 9th of Av, one may neither eat meat nor drink wine. These are all seen as signs of mourning. Very, very strong mourning. And then a few days later, we have this wonderful holiday of Tu B'Av. There's not really much ritual connected to it, but it's seen as being a day of celebration of romantic love. What happened on Tu B'Av for this to take place? Nowadays, very often it becomes almost like a Jewish Valentine's Day. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said, there were no days as joyous for the Jewish people as the 15th of Av and as Yom Kippur. Now, fascinatingly, people, and we're going to be detectives now. We're going to be detectives of the Mishnah and of the Gemara. And we're going to try and understand what message is hidden over here. There are no days as joyous for the Jewish people as the 15th of Av and of Yom Kippur. What happens between the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur? It is the harvest of the vines. That's when grapes are picked in order to make wine. We just read that you're not allowed to drink wine. Suddenly, a few days later, we have a celebration, two celebrations, celebrating the beginning of the harvesting of wine. What would happen on these days? On these days, the daughters of Jerusalem would go out in white clothes. We just learned that you're not allowed to launder clothing. And here suddenly they're going out in beautiful clothing, which each woman borrowed from another. Why were they borrowed? They did so as to not embarrass those who did not have her own white garments. The exact opposite of Sinat Chinam. We said the temple was destroyed because of hatred. Here, they're borrowing from each other so that nobody will know that this one is wealthy and this one is poor. We have here the exact opposite of Sinat Chinam. We have Avat Chinam, love of each other. And what would they do? They would go out and dance in the vineyards. We've just read live music is forbidden. Weddings are forbidden. And here, what are they doing? They're going out, they're dancing, they're looking for husbands. This is why they would go out into the fields to encourage young men to look at them and to want to marry them. Even in this little piece, we're going to see more examples, but even in this little piece, we see how Tisha B'Av is being undone. The weather is getting cooler. The nights are getting longer. It's time of romance. It's time of marriage. It's time of drinking. It feels almost like Greek over here, like a celebration, rather than the heavy Tisha B'Av that we've just had. But there are other things that reinforce the idea of Tu B'Av as being the undoing, the opposite of Tisha B'Av. We read, what is the special joy of the 15th of Av? It was in the days on which the members of different tribes were permitted to enter one another's tribe. What happened was there was a man called Slofchad who died and left no sons. So his daughters inherited his property, but they were scared that the land would leave this man's tribe when his daughters got married to somebody from another tribe. In those days, that's the way it worked. So they said, women can't marry outside their tribe. But on Tu B'Av, they said it is permitted for different tribes to marry each other. Again, love, marriage, and also unity of the different tribes. Something similar is seen in the next comment, where we read that the tribe of Benjamin were permitted to enter the congregation of the Jewish people. There's an awful story called Pilegesh Begivar, the concubine on the mountain. I'm not going to go into it, but it's really an awful story, as a result of which Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, was prohibited to marry into the rest of the Jewish people. On Tu B'Av, they were permitted. Again, hatred does not have to last forever. Sinat Chinam does not have to go on forever. We can hate people, but we can also make up. It's possible for things that were wrong to be made right again. Perhaps the most obvious idea of how Tu B'Av is an undoing of Tisha B'Av is Rabbi Barba Bachana said that Rabbi Yochanan said the 15th of Av was the day on which the deaths of the Jews in the wilderness ceased. So what happened was, because you had the spies, we read about the spies, who said that the land of Israel was not good, and as a result, the Israelites had to wander for 40 years. According to the Midrash, the rabbinic story, every Tisha B'Av, every 9th of Av, everybody would get into the graves, and the next day they would see who died. Then in the 40th year, and that way, every year, 1/40 of the people died. Eventually, in the 40th year, they went into their graves, nobody died. So they think, oh my goodness, we've made a mistake. Perhaps we calculated wrong. And they stay another day and another day and another day. Every day, nobody dies. On the 15th of Av, they realized the punishment is over. We're not going to die in the wilderness anymore. Do you see how beautiful and how clever this is? The punishment of not going to the land. On Tu B'Av, we learn that this is no longer in force. People are no longer going to die in the desert. It's time to go into the promised land. That which happened, that punishment is over, and we can go forward. Another reason why Tu B'Av is such a happy day, the 15th of Av was the day on which King Hoshea canceled the guards that Yerovam, son of Nevat, placed on the roads so the Jews could not go to Jerusalem for the pilgrimage festival. There was a wicked king called Yerovam, and he said that the 10 tribes of Israel were not allowed to go to the temple. And again, we see echoes, destruction of the temple, not being able to go to the temple. On Tu B'Av, a good king came, King Hoshea, and he said what Yerovam said was wrong. The Jews are able to again go, all of them, to the temple for Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuot. I don't want to bang you over the head. You're intelligent people, you can see it. But everything that went wrong on Tisha B'Av, the temple was destroyed, nobody could go. We see that Tu B'Av is playing with these themes and saying this was the day in which people could go to the temple in which there was less hatred between the Jewish people. Rav Matna said, Tu B'Av was the day that the slain of Beitar were brought to burial. What happened was that after the Beitar revolt, the Romans would not let the Jewish people bury their dead, but on Tu B'Av, they were allowed to bury their dead. I don't know if this is really undoing it, but it means that there was a little bit, a small amount of comfort in the terrible thing that had happened. Even if the revolt still happened and all these people had still died, at least they were able to bury their dead. And there's a special blessing, we say, Hatov HaMeitiv, in Birkat HaMazon, in the grace after meals, in memory of this act. And I think what we have over here is something very, very powerful. It's a certain lesson about gratitude, about how one of the most powerful ways to get out of a difficult situation is not to look at what you don't have, but to look at what you have, to be grateful. And finally, perhaps what I feel is the strongest one, the 15th of Av was the day on which they stopped chopping down trees for the arrangement of the wood. When the temple stood, there were people who were in charge of cutting down trees in order to provide wood for the temple. The Tu B'Av was the day when things started getting colder, and therefore it was the last day they could cut down trees for the temple. This wood was used for burning sacrifices. How was the temple destroyed? It was burnt. But Tu B'Av is the day when the wood is collected for a completely different type of burning, a good burning. And to me, this is the most powerful idea, that the same force of nature, burning, which destroyed the temple, that too can be used to serve God and be in the temple. So we see over here an incredible upturning of Tisha B'Av. You'll die in the wilderness, you'll no longer die in the wilderness. The temple was destroyed, you'll get back to the temple. Beitar was captured, the people are allowed to be buried. We don't have weddings, we celebrate romantic love. We hate each other, we love each other. We don't cut one's hair and launder clothes, we have a celebration. We don't drink wine, we have a celebration of wine. Why am I going through all of this? What is the point of this call? I think there's a very, very powerful point going on over here. What Tu B'Av is saying is what happened on Tisha B'Av happened. It was sad, it was awful, but it's not a curse. It's not forever. The pain and the suffering will always be there, but so are there good things in the future. And I think that speaks very, very strongly to our situation today. We can't underplay, we can't pretend that Corona had a terrible effect. People died, people lost their livings, it had psychological effects on people, it continues to do so. We can't pretend that isn't true. We can't pretend that divisions in society have gotten even stronger, that lots and lots of horrible things can happen. None of that can we pretend didn't exist, but they're not curses, they're not forever. And the same way that Tu B'Av upturns Tisha B'Av and says there's a better future ahead, so the afternoon of Tisha B'Av and so Tu B'Av tell us that there are lots and lots of good things in store for us. And I think the message of Hakarat HaTov, for being thankful for the good that we do have, is a very, very good step in that direction. So if you fast or you commemorate Tisha B'Av in some way, wishing you a meaningful fast, but more importantly, may we all have the blessings of Tu B'Av, and may our future be much, much better than our past.